Hey guys, welcome to the Essential Podcast. It is your boy Stevie Hayes, and we are joined by obviously the usuals, Nairi and Jonathan. And this is our third guest. We have Aaron. Aaron is studying neuroscience and biomechanics. How are you doing, brother? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here today. Definitely appreciate the opportunity. Just looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Of course, of course. So, obviously, Nairi. So, I want to hear about how you guys met. How you guys became friends, and then and how and kind of how we've gotten here. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to take that, Nairi? Or you want me to take some of that?
Yeah.
Or we
I
tag team?
yeah, I can kind of give my side of it and then you could kind of tag along. It was my junior year at Delaware State University and it was I forget the class, I think it was in motor learning and control. And I seen Aaron come in and he taught our class. And after the class ended, he asked if anybody wanted to know what he did. And I pretty much walked up to him. I was like, yo, like, what do you do? He said research and neuroscience and biomechanics. I was like, what is that? Um, and then from there, um, we kind of just have developed this relationship of doing research and working for Delaware State, working with each other, off hands, close friends off all this and just there's a whole lot more, but we've just done a lot of work together.
Yeah. 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 So kind of just tag team with Nairi saying. I think that was early 2019, like January-ish, and a common friend of ours or a common coworker, you could say, of ours, I was working with exclusively at Dell State, and he had asked if I could guest lecture for his course. So I came in, and yeah, again, kind of to piggyback on what Nairi was saying, I gave kind of the talk of the lecture for that day. And being someone who was just freshly out of undergrad, I wanted to just lend a hand to anybody who was, in school and looking for a career option or a career path, and made that clear, to everybody. And Nairi was really the only person who showed enough interest and I guess enough courage to just come up and talk, because I just wanted to,
yeah,
kind of create a safe space for, folks that like look like ourselves and are trying to figure out what they want to do next. Just kind of create a safe space for them to know that I'm there.
cool.
I can talk to them. And so from there, me and Nairi just continued to be friends and develop what was more of like honestly a brothership and like a friendship outside of just work.
Awesome, bro. See, that's an
Yeah.
awesome story. So,
Yeah.
I do want to hear your whole just like how did you just where you started, where you come from. So, like, give me a timeline of where you started all the way to the point of where you are today. Just give me like a nice timeline.
Timeline starting from like the days of a
Give
young
me
kid.
like yeah, give me like ninth grade. Give me ninth
Okay,
grade to now.
I got you. So, in high school and even a little bit before that, just growing up, I was always into sports. And I know that's something that me and Nairi have always connected through, along with other things. But in high school, I played basketball primarily and soccer. Um, and I was two-time captain, so junior and senior year for both teams. We weren't that great, so I'm not sitting here and act like we won the state championship or anything, but just always had that love for sports and continued to kind of give back in the community through that as well. And so when I finished up high school and going into college, I knew I wanted to stay in sports, but didn't want to necessarily spend any time like playing the game anymore. I wanted to have
Mm,
I don't want to say a backseat role, but some role that was integral to sports performance. So I went into the community college, the local community college back in Delaware, Del Tech. And I just started out there in an exercise science program. And I did 2 years there, did some prerequisites, worked there at the admissions office, through a work study program.
wow.
And then after a couple of years there, um, took the opportunity from Dell State to continue on. And even that first year, I kind of, at that point, didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, but was still studying a lot of exercise science, getting a lot of my core classes done. But it was the start of my senior year when I had known this gentleman already, but I went to still a really close friend of mine now, Dr. Mason, Dr. Robert Christopher Mason. I went to his neural control of movement science class, or human movement class. And it was right then and there when he started getting into more of the process of how the human body, the brain, the spinal cord are all connected and how we move. That's where I kind of found a passion and a lot of interest in how we actually move and understanding what and how we do that. So it was that at that point, like I think September of 2017, where I really found what I liked. And then, not September of 2017, September of 2016. And then later on, going into 2017, I also got the opportunity to be exposed to a research opportunity at Dell State, which is with the Delaware Research for Neuroscience Center. And met another individual by the name of Vaughn Homer. It's gonna be hard to not bring his name up when you talk about me and Nairi. And from there is where I met him and had the opportunity to work on some really cool research that exposed me to opportunities with just a lot of professional teams and collegiate teams down in the Miami, Florida area.
Wow.
So that's where and Nairi knows this story, but I got to work with the Miami Heat, specifically NBA player Justice Winslow, who I think is now with the LA Clippers, but I could be wrong. I can't. It's hard to keep up with all the moves.
Somewhere.
These guys making big money. He's somewhere. And then just kind of continued on. I got to work with some other guys at Nairi's favorite University of Miami.
Of course.
And
love Miami.
So that passion has now, got me down far away from home at Mississippi State, repping right here.
Wow, dude.
Home of the 2021 baseball collegiate champs, not 2022, unfortunately. And where I'm now working on a PhD in neuromechanics.
Wow.
And specifically with the athlete engineering program down here. So we're doing some things that tie back to what I started out with my career endeavors in 2017-ish. I've kind of transitioned some of that stuff down here and I've been collaborating with their engineers and research teams.
Awesome. Wow, dude. You sound like you have a busy life. Dude, you sound busy, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of traveling too.
Yeah, that sounds fun, man. So do you still watch soccer now, or was it just a game that you played? Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite team?
Favorite team right now? I mean, I kind of rock with wherever Ronaldo's at, but
okay, respect.
I'll say that I stuck with Real Madrid even after he left, so I'm still a Madrid fan.
Respect.
They, if I'm not mistaken, did they not just win the was it La Liga championship or UEFA Cup maybe 2 months ago?
Wow, that's
not
crazy.
100% sure, but still a big fan of them.
Hey, we do know the sports teams you're rocking with though. The football and baseball and basketball.
Yep. Yeah. So unfortunately, all bad teams right now, not doing too well, but Washington Commanders fan, Washington Wizards fan, and worst team in baseball, unfortunately, even though they were just the champs a few years ago, the Washington Nationals.
Wow, dude.
Originally being from the area too.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you're from DC?
So I was born in Arlington, Virginia, and grew up, spent my first 7 or 8 years in Alexandria, then moved to Delaware in 2002. I was like 7, 8 years old. So
dang. Awesome. Hey, Jonathan,
consider myself a Delawarean.
Yeah, I consider you are a Delawarean, bro.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. 302. We need everyone that we can get our hands on that is like doing something to be successful.
302 together forever.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan, do you have anything, brother?
Yeah, I wanted to. So you said you're studying neuromechanics currently,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes.
So I guess can you just elaborate exactly what is neuromechanics and what you guys specialize in?
Yeah, absolutely. So neuromechanics is pretty much the study of biological systems in relation to our mechanical system as it relates to our musculoskeletal system. So we're pretty much looking at the branch or the field of how the brain and the spinal cord do a lot of the groundwork and basis for how we actually move. Um, and so I, in particular, and Irie can speak to this, I look particularly at how the foot and ankle, right? So how the muscles that control the foot and ankle play a role in how we change direction, how we, um, you know, for the most part, change direction, but how we also safeguard ourselves against injury, how we're able to
So
make the
basically,
preparatory
like,
or necessary movements to allow us to not sprain our ankle and things like that. So I look at a lot of almost mind to muscle connection, and I do that primarily through a lot of sensor integration of sensors, things known as motion capture, inertial measurement units, force plates, and so through all of this, high tech and motion capture and technology these days, I use those instruments to teach, our up and coming students, but also to help not just athletes, but folks of all walks, kids, geriatric population, even the older population, the elderly, um, safeguard against injury. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what it is. And I don't want to nerd out or kind of geek out too much. And then you guys are like, what does he talk about?
no, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, I'm kind of like fascinated by it. So it's basically the study of like the structure of the human anatomy, pretty much,
Hmm.
from what I'm understanding. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
the engineering of the human anatomy.
Yeah.
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 That's cool.
Yeah. So, all
I
right.
didn't really know the details
Oh,
of
sorry,
that.
Jonathan. So, Aaron, all right. So here we go. Right. Boom. I'm running a
That was
route.
it.
Right. I'm all right. I'm on the football field. I'm running a route. Boom. Sprain my ankle or break my ankle. So, like, how? What am I pulling? How do I get injured? Like, why am I hurting? What tendon? Like, what nerve did I pop? What happened if I sprain or break my ankle? Sorry, this has been on my mind for the past 2 weeks. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. So, we can kind of get into the most common mechanism of injury for an ankle sprain, and that's known as a low ankle sprain, a lateral ankle sprain. So I know you guys, you say you run it. Let's say you're running a route. I wish I had one of my ankle models with me, but I don't. Um, Essentially, what happens there is you have multiple ligaments, multiple muscle groups, and even in some cases, you mentioned tendons um, that can be stretched or stretched beyond recoil or the ability to come back to where the ligament is supposed to be. And so what happens is when that takes place, you have your muscle groups, which tie back to, we talk about the brain and the spinal cord, not firing quickly or well enough or efficiently enough to actually catch what the ligament wasn't able to catch. And therefore, you get a disruption in poor communication between, let's say, the tibial nerve and the supply that it'll give to your tibialis anterior or your peroneus longus, those two specific muscle groups, um, as well as if we're talking about the ligaments, maybe maybe your tibial fib ligament or your anterior talofibular ligaments. Those are primarily the ones that you see that get affected. So when that takes place, you can have either what is known as a grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3 sprain, which I'm sure you guys have heard of at some point. just watching NBA basketball. And chances are, if we're talking about the most common sprain again, it's probably going to be a grade 2 where that ligament has, think of this as paper, right? Or think of the ligament as fully together, intact here. But a grade 1, you get a little bit of a tear like this, but a grade 2, you get a tear that's almost where the ligaments aren't able to touch or connect nearly as much as they should. And grade 3 is where it just totally, totally gives. So give or take, you usually get something like this. And that's where from there you can either have a 4 to 6 week recovery, or in some cases you might have to have some kind of surgery, and it could lead to 3 to 6 months of recovery. So yeah, that's kind of the general mechanism of how that can happen.
I have a question. So so neuroscience is the study of the brain and muscles. Why do we twitch sometimes? I don't know. Like, does that can you explain that? Because sometimes I'll just be like going about my day and I'll just randomly twitch, or I'll have like a nerve jump in like my arm. Is there like any explanation that you can provide as to why that happens?
So you're talking about those random jolts that you get from time to time, right? And you're just like, well, why did that happen? That's called some level of spasticity. And sometimes this just happens. You could be just having a regular day, but because, or I can also explain it as sometimes if you're working out or you're an avid person that goes to the gym, sometimes your muscles can kind of become preconditioned to being prepared for some kind of exercise or activity. And therefore, there can be times where essentially the muscle groups, and it could be anywhere, but let's just say it's your biceps. You get a little bit of a jolt because you've been preparing or consistently been working out in that area, and therefore you have over excitation is the word, right? And this could get pretty in depth, but you get some over excitation and some coupling that takes place. And sometimes your muscles are just ready and prepared to actually, overcome some kind of weight. So it can be spontaneous, but it's pretty much just neural firing that comes with some kind of over exaggeration or over excitation from neurotransmitters that pass along, the neuromuscular junction per se.
Dang. Okay. So like, have you seen in real time, like during the game, someone's ankle just kind of like snap? Like, or like,
oh yeah.
So, yeah, we both have.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
Can you hear it?
I know.
Or like, can you hear it, or is it more of like you see it just happening? Like, oh my gosh, like he just
usually you'll see it.
Yeah, go ahead, Nari. You got it.
Yeah, usually with a ankle sprain, usually
it's like a sound effect.
Yeah, I should add the sound effect of the ankle breaking.
Yeah. As Aaron was saying, usually with an ankle sprain, you'll hear, not hear, I'm sorry, you'll have the muscle itself will tear. And then there's the 3 different grades of tears. If anything, like what's connected to the ankle is the tibia and the fibula. That is something that's common in breaking in different sports. So playing sports such as football, soccer, even rugby, you'll have them type of freak accidents, which I kind of wanted to even like dive into. And this is the one thing that me and Aaron have kind of researched is footwear and the importance of footwear and different playing surfaces. So we've used a lot of science research off the field studies, and even with running shoes as well, to kind of predict injuries. And that's something else that neuroscience can kind of tie into. And so I kind of wanted to like translate into like footwear, because that a lot of that has to do with the footwear that athletes are wearing, or even the wrong
Yeah.
size shoes that are wearing.
Mm-hmm.
You want to elaborate on that, Aaron?
Yeah. So, I just sometimes, Steve, you kind of mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot I'm doing. And so, like, I'm teaching earlier and preparing for another talk in a few days. So sometimes some things go over my head as to things that we've done. But specifically talking about the importance of, or to answer your first question there, just about some things that you see and how the more and more you're around it, you can just kind of see and know when an individual has pretty much torn an ACL, or in this case, sprained an ankle. And a lot of the times, to tie that into what Nari was saying, we can tie it back to footwear. Footwear isn't as well studied as you may think, primarily because the Nikes that we get, the Adidas that we buy, I don't know, people probably ain't wearing Reeboks as much anymore, but like these kind of shoes, although they are, highly in the market and marketable, they're studied by their people in-house. And so what we have done and what we had done in the past with a guy that we worked with was actually be a third-party validator to kind of look at these shoes and give more information through the use of neuroscience and biomechanics to understand how and why sometimes people are finding themselves getting injured, and how the foot is interacting with the shoe, and then also how the foot and the shoe are interacting with some kind of playing surface. So as like Nari said, there's been times when we've realized that based on the foot type or the shoe that they're wearing, they're not even wearing the right shoe. And therefore, you might think, oh, I love me some KDs. This guy is the best baller, best player in the NBA. But therefore, you're wearing his shoe, and his shoe is specific to him. But Steve, you may have an entirely different foot.
Yeah.
So now you already predisposed yourself to injury, and you out there hooping, having a good time. You're like, man, these KDs ain't never giving me trouble. But boom, you've had some give. Now you got a grade 2 sprain, and now you got to reach out to the doctor, and they're telling you might have to sit out for a couple of weeks. So you might have to get up there and preach with a boot on or something, man. So those are a lot of the things that we do, and we provide that information back to these Nikes of the world, our Adidas, and that's kind of the value proposition that we see with the knowledge that we have to kind of change the footwear game and to safeguard against a lot of injury.
Wow. I think.
Yeah.
I think you should design your sneaker. That's what I think.
Call up Kanye, bro.
Go ahead and try your own
Adidas
sneaker brand.
Yeah, Kanye West. If you're watching this right now, hire Aaron. All right, for the next Yeezy 10,000, we need Aaron.
Adidas is one of the most comfortable shoes actually out there.
That's what I wear.
Yeah. So the quality of materials also goes into effect with footwear.
Absolutely.
And that goes into the design. So there's an entire branch of marketing with shoe design and science to go with it that companies need people like Aaron to do research. That's why his value of importance is very well, because companies like that will pay him for what he knows, not what he can do. So another thing that I also wanted to touch on, Aaron, is, so we talked about the footwear and neuroscience, because neuroscience and biomechanics isn't just specific to footwear, it's also specific to injury prevention. And I know you can kind of touch on that a little bit as well, because your research as a PhD student is within injury prevention.
A big part, understanding human movement can go to so many different levels, but a big thing that we really do focus on, and I'm focused on right now, is injury prevention. And a lot of what we do just involves very simple task. I wish I had kept these with me too, but right now something I'm working on with the Mississippi State soccer team here, the girls soccer team, is actually looking at dual tasking. So there's this thing called dual tasking where individuals will, if you think about it in sport, that's what they're doing all the time. If you're not just running around on a soccer field or on the pitch, is what they call it in England. You're also trying to locate where the ball is. You're trying to locate where your defender is, how you can get by them, how you can then angle yourself to score a goal. And so some research we're doing to try to help our athletes stay on the field and prevent injury is doing transferable work or doing transferable skills where we have them do balance tasks, but also do reactionary tasks. So we put things such as like a fit light system in front of them, and they actually have to do, again, what's known as dual tasking, where they're reaching out and they're reacting to different lights while they're on one foot. And what we'll do is we'll measure that with our favorite thing Nairi knows about, EMG, otherwise known as electromyography.
Yes.
And we develop what is known as some kind of score based on their ability to keep themselves stable through their neuromuscular system. And then we give that information back to our strength and conditioning coaches here and our athletic trainers. And then with that information, we're able to then tell them, well, hey, look, we're seeing that, this individual is a little bit weak in the hips or the muscle groups around the hips, or weak in the hamstring groups. And so that information then allows them to go back and specifically work on those areas. And then we test them again and again and again, like halfway through the season and again at the end of the season. So that way they can have a full-on profile to know, okay, here's also where maybe after, 10 or 20 minutes, we should get them off the field so that they have some time to rest and recover and not increase their risk for getting hurt while they're playing. So things like that are what we're working on. And we're always trying to come up with different fresh ideas. And I still try to collaborate back home with some of the local universities to be able to, get this information and this research out, not to just the Mississippi area, but back home in the 302.
Cool.
Wow.
Right.
Wow, man, wow. I'm sorry, I'm speaking this right now. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
also so we talked about footwear, injury prevention, and you mentioned strength and conditioning. The neuroscience and biomechanics also ties in to the effect of that too. A lot of people don't have the understanding of what the neuromuscular system can do for performance, and kind of recognizing your body's limits as we speak on EMG and having a MVC, if you kind of want to talk about that like in a minute. But a lot of training and a lot of stuff that you see on social media is just a lot of technique, exercise, bodybuilding, eating, and just building muscle. But understanding the body and understanding the neuromuscular system and injury and prevention and strength and conditioning with our maximum voluntary contraction. Oh gosh. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So yeah. Like even right now when I'm teaching and talking about, certain things that are just biomechanically related, a lot of what that looks at is, how can I say, reactionary or after a movement has taken place. So we can look at force, we can look at joint angles, and all these things are well studied in the world of biomechanics. But what isn't understood, as Nairi is mentioning, is kind of that neural mechanism or the underlying mechanism of the biomechanics that you see. And that's the neuroscience or the neurophysiology. And so what he's talking about there, MVC, just think of, so that what that stands for is maximum voluntary contraction. And often we use this tool with the EMG system that I talked about, in which if you guys go to the gym. I see you guys' Instagrams from afar sometimes. If you think about like a 1 rep max, right? You guys are benching, you're doing your 1 rep max. Let's say you can get up to, 250. Think of that as your maximum voluntary contraction. And then off of that, so if I had the EMG hooked up to your pecs, I could see, okay, this is how hard that Nairi had to contract his muscle groups there to do his 1 rep max. From there, I can then go back and take that information and pretty much reference that as hard, or as pretty much as hard. I'm not saying that the best way, but I can reference that is pretty much how hard they can flex their muscle groups. And so from there, what you can do is then have an individual then do, your regular reps where you're doing per se 3 sets of 10 and you're doing 175, or let's say 150. And I can show you that in doing that, you're only using 45% of your muscle groups, which means that you're able to efficiently continue to do those reps for probably really 4 sets of maybe 10. That same thing can be passed along to how we look at the foot and ankle complex. And that is kind of that underlying mechanism in which we can understand, well, this individual, we know that they're flexing and that they can produce, 500, or not 500, but like 5,000 newtons of force. Mm-hmm. But we want to see that while they're playing and they're running on the field for 10 minutes, that they're only producing maybe 1,000 newtons of force. That way, they're not at the reference point or at a state of fatigue very quickly. Because if you get to a state of fatigue very quickly, then that's where you can have a higher risk to run for injury. And so I think what we're doing and what people don't understand sometimes is, well, how do they do that? How are they able to use that information to further understand how there's the neural impulses or the neural drive that plays a role in human movement? So that's a lot of what we do on the back end to let us understand more of how our joints and our just our overall musculoskeletal system keeps us upright and running on the field.
Wow. So yeah. Aaron, like, a lot, dude. I mean, you are spitting right now. You know what I mean? Like it's like we're in a cipher and you're like Kendrick and then just giving me like a 20-minute. Maybe I shouldn't say Kendrick after the
last we can't do Kendrick. Yeah.
Sorry.
Didn't watch some of that.
Yeah. My lips, I that will be cut. I'm kidding. But what is your why? Like why do you do this? Like what makes you get up in the morning and go after this?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think for me, what it's been is just the opportunity to change lives, to help people, to help pass along information that really God has had out there for us, but he's giving, some of his soldiers the ability to go out there and pass along. So I think a good amount of it is just that, everything that we have, the living organisms that we live within are all his creation and all his making. But as a scientist, uncovering what is out here for us to understand, I think we're maybe 10 to 15%. We've completed maybe 10 to 15% of that job. So I think just the ability to kind of tell that story through our research, through science, and really then apply it and help all people of all walks. Athletes is what I love. I've always played sports, but as I've grown and gotten further into this field, the ability to really just pass that information along to children, to parents of children, to young adults who just want to stay healthy, and then just to people of all walks again, is what keeps me going each and every day. So I'll sit here and say some days are easier than others, right? You're going after a PhD far away from home.
Yeah.
Girlfriend, she's very far, family, but that is definitely the driving force and what keeps me so motivated each and every day.
Wow, bro.
I
So
love that.
so what
Yeah.
so what role has your faith in Jesus played in this whole entire process so far?
Everything, like, in its entirety. Um, all of my faith in everything as it relates to a relationship with God has played a role, but I would say specifically just trusting in Him. Um, because on certain days where you're trying to uncover some answer, and some days it may just be, well, what was this research paper I read? What and how does that actually tie to what we're doing? That can be a challenge. And you can have days where you're like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I have the ability to keep doing this. So I would say my biggest thing is just, um, in terms of my faith journey, it's just been trusting Him and not always, trusting in just myself. That has always, what I've seen over the past couple of years has always been a way in which when I look back, I'm like, man, He definitely kept me going. He definitely pushed me towards this goal more and more. And sometimes again in that moment it's tough and I don't see it. But anytime I sit down and I pray and I do any kind of introspection or reflection, I'm able to see, how far he's brought me in this journey and what he's doing, through me to help others.
Yeah, man. And that's, and that's a big part of life. And I know Jonathan and Irie, you guys can both speak to this as well. As like through this life, there's gonna be a lot of times where we don't know what the next step is, and we're kind of, it feels like we're kind of stuck in this like middle ground of life. And I mean,
Yeah.
even from high school to now, right? Or from high school to college to being an adult, I just got married, so pretty nuts there, having a wife. But it's like, when you see where God has brought you, right? From where you didn't know what the next step was. And then God brought this opportunity and that opportunity, it's and I really firmly believe that one of the greatest ways of us showing our faith to Jesus is dependence, being fully dependent on Him and fully saying, God, I don't know what the next step is, but I trust that you're going to get me there. That is, I really believe, that is where God wants us to be. Because if we're always so sure about everything, there's kind of no need for a God then at that point. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
yeah, bro, you saying that really just spoke to me very heavy. So that was good, man. Thank you for that.
I appreciate that. And, we're not using a certain name in terms of rapping, but you definitely was just spitting just now yourself, man. I'm definitely feeling it.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I honestly can say that I'm a part of what God has done through you in your life. I mean, we're just an example of just two guys from Delaware State. We happen to run into each other, but I was a student that was trying to figure it out, trying to figure out life. Because in college, you can get there and you may not understand what's going on. You can come in as a freshman, you know, things go this way. Parents could have a sway in what you want. You got friends kind of intel what you want, but it's people that come through and help. Like Aaron, he kind of impacted my life in a way where it like transcended into my career, and continue to do that in Mississippi. Like, I mean, we're just guys from Delaware, as we say, from 302, right? But it's special
Mm-hmm.
of
Go
what
to
you're
man.
doing, and the impact that it has on others. And to those listening, like, you can do that with your life, whatever you're doing with your career, your job, wherever you're working, you can impact somebody. You can impact their lives. You never know
Absolutely.
with whatever you're doing. It's never for nothing. So,
Yeah.
And I
uh,
have a question. What part of Delaware were you from before you moved?
I think you asked what part of Delaware was I from?
Yeah,
It broke up a little bit.
yeah. What
Yeah.
part of Delaware?
I'm from Newark originally,
Okay.
right off of Old Baltimore Pike. For anybody who hears this, so not too far from the Christiana Mall. um,
Oh my
Grew up
gosh.
in Newark. I went to the local elementary school. I went to Thurgood Marshall and then
Hey.
Kirk Middle School, and high school, no longer around, and I'm coming up on my 10-year already, which is crazy. But Penn Cater charter. So,
What? Oh, dude, Penn
Yeah.
Cater. Dang, dude, I
Yeah.
remember that school.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I was a part of that last graduating class in 2013. That graduated in June that year.
Bet.
So I'm Delaware through and through. Know the area very well.
That's good, man.
Yeah, it's good.
So
Real quick. Am I
You're
breaking
good. You're
up a
good.
lot? I'm good. Okay.
Like you'll talk,
Service
but it'll
is
be
really
like
bad.
delayed. So talk now. I
Yeah,
think I hear you
service
now.
here is really bad, man. But
You're good.
that's fine. That's cool. But no, Aaron, man, like your story is very inspiring. Um, I don't know, maybe I missed it, but how does the brain aspect of neuroscience affect
Yeah.
the physical? Like,
Yeah.
is this psychological or
So
physiological?
I I have the brain. I have a model of the brain right over in the corner of my room, but um, particularly there's a so I study the brain each and every day. Like a mantra I kind of live by is, and it's kind of cliche, but it's 1% every day, and that kind of helps me to be able to continue to learn more and more. But there's a specific part of the brain, or the entire brain plays a role. You can talk about memory, you can talk about the psychological aspect, but if we're going to keep it to movement, primarily the area that really helps with that is known as the frontal lobe or the motor cortex. And it is pretty much considered like the control center of how we move, control center for how we pass along information from the brain to the spinal cord. So, and then down to our peripheral limbs, such as our arms and our legs. So the motor cortex, and I could get pretty deep. There's different areas from there. M1, M2, M3, M4 is where all of those movement capabilities are housed, and how we even pre-plan and think about a movement. We can use things like EEG, electroencephalography, right? Like to actually measure brain activity. It can like literally tell us kind of when we're thinking about preparing to do a movement, just to reach out and pick up a pencil, or to then actually execute that. There's other parts of that motor cortex that we use. So that's just one part of the brain.
Yeah.
And we call that, particularly or specifically, as Nairi knows, the central nervous system. And then from there, again, that being the computer and the driving force, that information is then transmitted down our spinal cord and to the rest of our body to actually produce a movement. And that's just one example.
That's amazing, man. I find your subject very interesting, especially because my mother had ALS, and
Okay, yeah.
ALS is a disease that kills the nervous system, which
Mm-hmm.
thus prevents them to move. And I just, I pray one day, man, maybe, one of, you or, some of you guys in the neurosciences realm eventually finds the cause of this
Yeah,
unknown cause of that, that problem.
absolutely.
yeah.
There's people, and I'll give a shout out to Ashley. I hope we can get her to watch this video or the podcast. But people like her that we've worked with at Delaware State, who get down to the nitty gritty and really spend time studying the nervous system, how you can say in vitro. So where they're actually like taking muscle biopsies and comparing, the muscle of somebody who may have had ALS to somebody who's healthy. And in doing so, they're able to then understand some of those mechanisms to why that's happening and what we may be able to do to treat that. So it really does start at the level of, I could say, the organelles or organisms such as, how can I say, rats or mice or other kind of insects such as flies that we actually use as a model to better understand things like that. And then we are, slowly trying to translate that information into folks, or into the clinical population, to kind of try to improve and reduce, the symptoms that we see, and hopefully in the long run, the disease itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's so as Aaron was saying, our friend that is a researcher as well, there are, with the studying the nervous system, there's research on the cellular level, and then there's research on human factor data, and that's on kind of the realm of me and Aaron. But it's important as scientists to know the entirety of the nervous system. So
Yeah.
as he does, but his research more pertains to the human body, human factor, injury and prevention, and biomechanics. So yeah.
Yeah, so we don't want to keep you long, so let's end it with a closing question. All right.
Okay.
I had two questions actually too.
When I read, get those, so say those, and then I'll make like the closer. Go ahead.
So number one is, how can a student per se that's trying to figure it out, say in high school, college, how do they figure out what they, because sometimes a student can get lost in translation with school. What is your advice to a student that is trying to figure things out?
Ask questions. I think a lot of the times when you're in school, and you're in an environment where it may seem intimidating, you see a professor or somebody who's done really well with their academics. I think a lot of times people find themselves just intimidated to ask questions, and they think that they're larger than life. We're all human beings, all right? There's no need to idolize or kind of get into the space of what would this person think of me. Just ask the questions and understand that more often than not, people are out there to help you. So that's one thing. And then I'd say another thing that you can also do is just, read. Just read and learn as much as you can. I mean, Google is a great resource, right? If something's on your mind, literally Google it, see what it's about, and then see what information is out there that you can pull. You can find books. I got books sitting on my desk right now that I read on a daily basis. So I think those are two things that I would definitely do. And if you're not somebody of the variety who wants to ask questions, then use those resources that we have nowadays.
Right. Yeah. And the last question, did you have something to say, Jonathan?
I was just saying awesome advice.
Oh yeah.
That's good advice.
And last question, I know that you've been doing a lot of work. You've been putting a lot of work in. There are times where like people don't see the end result of what you're doing. There's a lot of nights where you're reading abstracts, you're typing up family that you have to contact. Like, what is your advice to someone that what is a reminder that they can keep to themselves when they're like in them times, trying to figure it out?
I mean, the first thing that always comes to mind is pray. Like, it's always that. Whenever you got a moment to sit down and think about all that you're doing and to have some introspection, I think it's always spending a few minutes with the Lord. And I try to take some time out each and every day, whether it's 10 minutes in the morning, a few minutes in the evening, to do that, to continue to try to keep a relationship with, the big man above. And in doing so, I think that helps me to be able to create more, what is known as just create more balance. So that would be my biggest advice, because there are times where it definitely can be overwhelming. And, Steve, as you mentioned, you have a wife, managing relationships, family relationships from a long distance can be overwhelming at times, and you can miss a lot of things. So spending those few minutes with God and knowing that this is something that he's placed on my heart allows me to just listen to what he wants me to do and allow me to honestly just spend some time balancing myself between working out and communicating with my friends, communicating with my committee, and even building a community out here in Starkville, Mississippi.
That's
Wow.
awesome. And
Good stuff.
And sorry, Steve. Last, what is next for you? What is after Mississippi State?
Yeah, so it's definitely come back to the East Coast. I won't say it's Delaware, but it's to be in a position where I'm definitely teaching. So just continuing to pass along this information that I have, because what does it matter if you have it and you're not able to share it with someone? And then to continue to work with different walks of life, probably primarily sports and footwear, but to work with just clinicians in general to be able to kind of interpolate the information that I have through my research with physical therapy practices, with athletic training practices, with the development and the design of footwear. So overall, just continue to unlock the human body's potential so that we're able to get to a point where, injury is never going to be gone, but truly reduced to a number that is something that is manageable and helpful to each and everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a state that you would love to move to if you got to choose?
Oh yeah. So me and the lady, for sure, we are dead set on North Carolina. And if you want me to be more specific, I'd love to be teaching at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, go Tar Heels.
Great program.
Great school.
And just to be able to kind of build and start a family out there. So that is the goal, and we pray about that a lot. But we know that wherever God wants to send us, he will send us, and we will continue to be faithful stewards to what he has for us in the future.
Respect.
That's awesome.
Great.
Bro.
Well, yeah, man. Thank you. Man, thank you for hopping on our show, man. We really appreciate it. We kind of created this platform thinking what is the greatest thing that we can give Gen Z? And honestly, it's this, having people like you on, being able to come on and talk about what you do, but also having someone who's very grounded in their faith and knows why they've been put on this earth. So, we really want to use Aaron as an example of many others that have, gone the course. They're they've gone to college, now they're going for the PhD, and then after that, they're going to be pursuing their dreams. So guys, I mean, look, really take in what he's saying and really just do some self-reflection on your life as well. None of us are perfect. We don't have it all together. We're not saying that. Far from
absolutely.
That.
Absolutely.
The same way Aaron did the ankle. We are a torn ankle. Okay, we are not. Yeah. None of us are grade A or grade B. We are very torn. We're grade Z.
Yeah, always remember that analogy.
I'm using that. Next time I preach, I'm definitely using this analogy, and I'm going to give you a shout out for that.
Man, yeah, great.
But we are striving to be greater, in the same way you guys are as well. So, Aaron, thank you so much, bro. Jonathan, Irene, do you guys have any closing remarks?
Just thank you for saying just
you hopping on this show and giving us your story. It's inspiring.
For giving to light to those out there in the world and to get inspiration, that is important, and it's very great that we could just highlight your journey and your story so others can see it. It's amazing.
I just
deserve it.
I'm just hoping your tuition is paid off, man.
Oh, we got a little ways to go. Most of it is gone, but at least since I've been in grad school, I haven't paid a cent, and that's all glory to God for that.
That's awesome, bro. Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, bro, we would love to have you on again. Maybe not talking about neuroscience, maybe about something else. Something else that you're into. So, yeah, bro. Thank you so much for hopping on, guys. Please like and subscribe. We're trying to go full time off of this. So, and then we can fly down to Mississippi and film a live episode, right?
I'd love to have you guys. And I would just like to say, Love all the work you guys are doing, man. You guys definitely, everybody check out this podcast. What these boys are doing, putting on for Delaware, I think is great. And, couldn't be a better group of guys. So you guys keep striving and keep pushing and, just pushing the narrative forward. It's really, really, really good stuff, man. So thanks again for the opportunity. And I look forward to another opportunity in the future, guys.
Of course, Aaron, thank you so much, my brother. All right, guys. Peace out. Have a good night. Deuce.